scale chords. Another super powerful option that you have here. So easy. Let me move into the key of C for a second. So what's cool here is that in the key of C, it makes it very simple for us to see this. Literally, if I just mash down any white notes in any combination, these are scale chords, right? Basically, what I'm doing is I'm creating a chord using only notes from the scale, right? And that chord could be any combination of intervals. Literally, just mashing down notes. There's a scale chord on the key of C. There's a scale chord. There's a scale chord. There's a scale chord. Now, some of them are going to sound better than others. What I find is like a lot of times when you do like those close and far intervals together, but do them in a scale chord kind of way, like this, you get some really cool sounds. Look at what happens now when I move to B flat. Remember, I got B flat and E flat I got to contend with, but so I can create all of these different chordal sounds, and it's going to work over my progression. Remember, in the progression, when I go to B flat to C minor, that B flat major scale is going to work over both of those chords. Right? It's going to work over all of those chords, even if I start thinking G minor and E flat as well, if I think of like kind of like the full underlying bass line and progression. But that scale works over all of those chords. So that means I could play any of these scale chords. Listen to what that sounds like. Even in the jazz sound. So those scale chords, super, super powerful. All right, so try just playing those scale chords on whatever scale you're doing. In this case, we're using that B flat major scale. So try creating those scale chords. All right, last idea, use the full scale. Use arpeggios and use holds. So that means that I could use the full scale. I don't have to always be switching directions. So I'm not saying that you're never going to use the entire scale, but you're going to use it very sparingly. Hardly ever am I going to play the entire scale up or down the keyboard. I can also use arpeggios, and these arpeggios can be actual arpeggios from the scale, or I can create made-up arpeggios. Like if I do something like this. Now, of course, we could really get into the theory of it and say, well, it really is still an arpeggio. You know, it's a G minor in third inversion there, right? So root, first, second, third inversion, right? And that's fine if you want to talk about the theory or you know the theory. Absolutely fine. Knock yourself out. But for a lot of students, as you start thinking or overthinking those types of theoretical things, it starts to get in the way of your improvisation, okay? So what I like to suggest you do instead is really just kind of think of like, okay, remember those scale chords? Well, rather than playing them as scale chords, rather than playing them all at the same time, I can arpeggiate them. I can break them up, and I get this kind of sound. I could use a full scale. Holds, right? Just hold some notes out. So, playing the full scale, doing your arpeggios, and then also putting in some holds. Now, when you improvise, you're going to bring all of these concepts together simultaneously. All right? So again, let me go back and let me slow this down. So, first of all, I got to get the progression. Get the B flat, right? and then to the C minor. Okay, that's the very first step. Look, here's the deal. If you don't have a strong foundation in the left hand, then don't even bother to try and improvise in the right hand. Okay? Don't do this whole, yeah, I'm just gonna put my hand down here or use my. No, you got to make sure that you have a strong foundation in the left hand. Now, I understand some of you might play like in funk bands or whatnot and not have to use your left hand as much. That's fine if you don't have to, if it's not required, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't know how to. That's my point. You need to make sure that you have a strong foundation in that left hand. Okay? The next thing is obviously just start. You're just playing that scale up and down. Now, we don't have to get into a lot of detail here. Basically, start with the scale. So notice that it doesn't quite line up super neatly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So you see how you're at 1 is now on C, which actually kind of works out great for that C minor chord. And remember, you can slow the video down, you can loop it and all that good stuff. All right, so that's the very first thing. Now, once you can do that, then start messing around with the different ideas. So, number 1, switch direction mid-scale. If you're just going down to B flat and that's like your bottom note, it's not going to clash with any of these chords. Okay? So, you'll be fine. Also, when you're trying to work on the switching direction, no one says you have to go all the way up to the top of the scale. So, and what's great here is see how this really helps you work on that cross back and forth. Really helps you to learn how to prepare those fingers for that cross. All right, so you can just stay right there in those 5 or 6 notes. You don't have to move beyond that. After that, try your 3 or 4 note groupings. Okay, and then you can move up and down. Notice I can go down a little bit here, right? I can go down to the A, it's still not conflicting, okay, with this down here. Unfortunately, you can't play that chord down there, it's too low, but if you really want to play some different chords down here, you can do B flat major like that and C minor like that. That really gives you a lot more space. Okay. Idea number 3, use your close and far intervals. Like we talked about, using your scale chords, and then finally using your full scale, your arpeggios, and your holds. So now, listen to what happens when I play this, and I'm just going to kind of freely improvise for a little bit, and you'll kind of hear how I'm using all 5 of these different elements. So I'm going to start with my full scale. Now I'm going to work on the switching directions. Groupings. 3. Going up or down. 4 note groupings. 5. Probably find that 5 note groupings are a little bit more difficult, and 3 and 4 note groupings would be easier for you. All right? Scale chords. And then doing close and far intervals. Folds. Arpeggios. Going back to your full scale. Not worrying about the notes. Just really trying to focus on my rhythm. And then get back on track. Okay? So there's a lot that you could do with this information here. All right, so you're gonna want to take these ideas, you're gonna want to unpack them, and you're really gonna want to sit with them for a while. They, on the surface, are going to seem, wow, that seems really simple. Okay, and the beauty is they are really simple. The challenge, though, is getting them underneath your fingertips. And I'm gonna tell you, like this is where I get kind of pissed off, with online lessons and students and stuff. I hear like this stuff all the time. Oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. Look, if you got 5 minutes a day, you got time, right? Stop making excuses that you don't have time. You could take these ideas and you could be thinking in the car or while driving, or on a bus, on a train, on a plane, on a boat, wherever, if you really don't have 5 minutes in your day, then you're overscheduled, my friend, right? If you really just have to make a decision. Do you want to learn? If you want to learn, then you've got to put in the time. And as far as having the time, there's always 5 minutes in a day. What do you do then with that 5 minutes? Take some of these theoretical ideas, and even if you're not at the piano, you could still practice them, right? You could practice the idea. Right? You could be thinking, okay, 3-note groupings. All right, let me just do this on E flat major scale. E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, B flat, C, B flat, C, D, E flat, F. All right, now what does that do for you? That helps you to see that shape, okay? Because if you can't see the shape of the scale, forget it. It's going to be impossible for you to improvise over it. All musicians end up seeing the shape of a scale in one fashion or another. Okay? We don't just think, well, it's a major second into a minor second into there's a major third. And we don't think theoretically about all of this stuff. We're human beings, and we're going to make it simple for ourselves because improvisation, bam, is immediate. You have to be able to do it right then and there. And if you don't know it forwards and backwards, forget it. You're like dead in the water. So you have to make sure that you know this stuff forwards and backwards. And this is where visually seeing it is so helpful to you. And this is why so many musicians end up learning the piano, because it's visually right there in front of you. All right, so like I said, Piano Essentials, that's a great way of going through and learning all of your major scales. Also shows you triads, seventh chords, progressions, like all of this stuff. So there's a bunch of information in there. Take a look at the link down below from this video, or you can also just go back to nobowlpiano.com and I'll end up sending you an email about it as well. All right, now what I tell students is practice ain't bull. All right, and this goes back to the 5 minutes again. You got to practice. If you're not willing to practice, then don't whine about how you haven't reached your goal, okay? You got to put in that time. Now, the good news is it doesn't have to be a super amount of time. It doesn't have to be a half hour every day. If you don't do a half hour every day, you could be 5 minutes one day. Now, you can't get to a high level with just practicing 5 minutes a day. Obviously, you got to practice more than that. But if some days is 5 minutes, that's okay. And what you'll also notice is even with 5 minutes of practice, you'll also find that, hey, look, I'm still getting somewhere. So let's just go through one last time, all right? I just want to play this for you one last time and give you some other ideas here that you could work with. So when I just sit down, I'm going to just freely improvise on this. Start with those chords first, right? Then come in with like maybe the 5 notes of the scale. Right, so start with those 5 notes. So start scalar. Right? Then try doing those close and far intervals. Now some notes, like I said, don't focus on notes. You might find it like, oh, I don't like the sound of that. All right, so get used to that. Play it again. Why play it again? Because this way it really gets you knowing the sound of what that ninth, what that note sounds like. anytime you come across a note that you don't like the sound of, especially when improvising over a scale, all you're going to do is move up or down to the next scale note, and you're likely going to find one that works. So listen to this. So if I end up on the C, but now I move to the D, all right, so now, where do we go from here? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing some more of these Piano Scales Suck videos, and I'm going to be talking about rhythm, and if you would like to know about the progression and the bass line, definitely leave a comment below. I will keep that in mind, and I might make a video on that as well, all right? So these lessons are for you. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them below, all right? I want to hear what it is that you think. I want to hear what challenges you have, and I want to hear about your successes as well. So now make sure that you go back to nobullpiano.com. That way you can get the backing track and the sheet and all of that for this lesson. I'm Willie Myette. Thanks a lot for joining me. I'll see you in the next lesson.